Hello there and welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1. You're joining me, David Paldano. Now, before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines this hour.
Deep depression in the Bay of Bengal turns into a cyclone, likely to intensify into a severe cyclonic storm during the next 24 hours. Public health inspectors deployed to control COVID-19 in prisons. Protest atop the Anganukula Palace prison continues. Trump accepts transition to Biden must begin.
Now on to your weather update making headlines this afternoon. The deep depression over the southwest Bay of Bengal intensified into a cyclonic storm Niva and lay centered near the east of Kankasanture coast. The Met Department said it is very likely to intensify into a severe cyclonic storm during the next 24 hours. It is expected to move towards the northwestwards and cross Tamil Nadu coast India during the next 48 hours. The Met Department predicts intermittent showers or thunder showers and sudden roughness associated with sudden increase of wind speeds over eastern and northern, deep and shallow sea areas during the next 24 hours. Now on to your COVID-19 update. The 2 females have been reported among the 3 dead that were reported due to COVID-19 in the country yesterday.
The death toll due to COVID-19 rose to 90 after 3 individuals succumbed to the virus. Official figures showed that 335 COVID-19 cases linked to the Paliguda cluster were detected yesterday. By this morning, the number of patients linked to the clusters in Minuwangoda and Paliguda rose to 16,974. Among them, 10,691 people have recovered from the infection. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's tally of COVID-19 patients recorded since the outbreak of the virus in March stands at 20,508. 428 people recovered from the virus, raising the total number of recoveries to 14,497.
The quarantine curfew is still in effect under the quarantine regulations in 18 police divisions in the country, including 13 police divisions in the Colombo district and 5 police divisions in the Gampaha district. 2 Grama Seva divisions in the Angulana area were isolated. The isolation has now been lifted. However, the Sayurapura apartment complex will continue to stay isolated. These travel restrictions are applied to all the isolated areas. Residents of these areas must remain at home. We urge you to commit to your responsibilities of abiding by the said rules and limit travel. If you do your part, we will be able to lift the status of isolation.
ඔබගේ ප්‍රදේශයේ මෙම හුදකලා තත්ත්වය ඉවත් කර සාමාන්‍ය තත්ත්වයට පත් කරන්න ඒ ඔබ සතු ඇති කාර්යභාරය.
Sri Lanka's prisons chief has said that 5 public health inspectors has been tasked with taking steps to control the spread of COVID-19 in prisons. 717 inmates have been identified from several prisons since the first infection was reported at the female ward of the Valikada prison complex. 35 inmates, mostly at prisons located in Colombo, tested positive for the virus today. We have curbed the transmission of the virus at the female ward of the Valikada prison. The situation has been brought under control in the Busa and the Old Bogambara prisons as well. The transmission of the virus is being widely reported from the Valikada prison. We are taking steps to bring the situation under control. The Health Services Director has deployed 5 public health inspectors for this purpose. They will be directed to the relevant prisons to implement a strict monitoring mechanism. Schools reopened in all parts of the country excluding the western province and isolated areas yesterday. However, low student turnouts were recorded at schools despite resuming academic sessions for students of grade 16 to grade 13.
Our correspondents reported that a low student turnout had been witnessed at schools in Badulla. According to the principals of these schools, the number in attendance stood at low levels yesterday and today as well. Today's student turnout across schools in Galle was comparatively lower than yesterday. However, our correspondent reported that some rural schools in the district had witnessed a spike in the attendance of students. Meanwhile, today's student turnout in Polonnaruwa was also comparatively lower than yesterday. Poor attendance of students was witnessed across schools in Hambantota yesterday and today as well. According to our correspondent, several students have been inconvenienced as school buses had not been in operation. Our correspondents observed a low attendance of students in the Ampara district as well. While a low student turnout was recorded in the Anuradhapura district, our correspondents reported that health guidelines had not been practiced at several schools. Against such a backdrop, the president of the Ceylon Teachers Union had criticized the decision to reopen schools in the country.
Parents have not been convinced that health guidelines are being followed in schools as claimed by the Education Secretary or the Minister. These officials are trying to expose the children to danger.
Meanwhile, State Minister Vijitha Berugoda inspected the situation at the Vellasa National School in Bibila yesterday. During his tour, the State Minister praised the students on the decision to reopen schools.
Education Minister GL Piris informed me to inspect the attendance of students at 2 schools and whether protective measures are being practiced. It is not healthy to disrupt the education of students regardless of the trying circumstances. The country needs human resources to witness development. That is why the government and the Education Minister have made the call to reopen schools. We do not oppose reopening schools, but it must be done under proper mechanism. The responsible state officials, including the Education Minister, are saying that sending students to schools is at the discretion of the parents. If that's the case, isn't the government undertaking the responsibility of creating a safe environment for students and creating a sense of trust among parents? The Education Ministry is saying that academic activities will take place as usual in a week. This is hilarious. Health guidelines must be followed, otherwise this exercise will prove to be futile. The school system has not seen any development. In another one of your headline-making stories, a protest launched by a group of inmates atop the Angrukola Palace prison yesterday is still continuing. The demonstration has been aimed at opposing moves to bring in inmates from other prisons for quarantine purposes. Our correspondent said that the inmates had launched the protest at 5 a.m. yesterday.
At this point, the inmates are trying to take advantage of the situation. What is happening through this is that the prisoners are being put at risk again. Therefore, we are clearly taking strong action in this regard.
The Pambanua street vendors staged a protest against the allotment of the land of the old Maharagama bus stand.
The protest was staged at around 8 in the morning. They allege that there is an attempt to sell some parts of this land to other businessmen. Our correspondent said that the protest was staged while adhering to all health guidelines.
We have been doing business here for more than 30 years, and now they are trying to sell these lands to outsiders in an arbitrary way using their powers. They have shifted the bus stand, and it gives the perfect opportunity to the government to allocate these lands to the vendors who have been doing business here for a long period of time.
The first step. I'm sorry for being so late.
It's okay. I understand.
පරක්කුණාට සමාවෙන්න.
ඒකට කමක් නැහැ. මට තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන්.
தாமதத்திற்கு வருந்துகின்றேன்.
பரவாயில்லை. நான் புரிந்து கொண்டேன்.
The first step.